Right, good morning ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of Cabinet today, Wednesday the 15th of May 2024. First item on the agenda is, do we have any apologies, Mr Bradbury?
Good morning, Leader. No, I'm not in receipt of any apologies.
Agenda item 2 is declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order 16. Are there any declarations of interest? For the record, nobody is indicating. Item 3, decision notice of the meeting held on the 17th of April 2024. Is it your wish I sign that off as a correct record of the meeting? Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. Yes. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I've got 2 people who have agreed to sign it off as a correct record. Thank you. Agreed. Oh, good. That's everybody now. Item 4 is Leaders' Update. Good morning and welcome to today's Cabinet meeting. Firstly, we have spoken many times around the table about the importance of good highways to this council, our residents and our businesses. As you will all be aware, this winter has been one of the wettest and stormiest on record, with 6 named storms and the highest rainfall in February ever recorded. We all know too that this has had a massive impact on highways across the UK, and the situation here in Staffordshire is no different. Our crews did an excellent job last year to improve our roads, but because of the weather, we've seen a massive increase in new reported defects compared to the same time last year. This means that a lot of the fantastic progress we'd made over the past 12 months has been undone. After listening to our communities, it's clear that something urgently needs to be done to address this. That is why we are planning a major drive to tackle the situation, and we are calling this our post-winter highways recovery plan. Once finalised, we will share how our actions over the coming weeks and months will ensure people will see a difference, so please bear with us and help us support our crews to get this job done. And to Councillor DeVille and his team, we look forward very much to you getting your sleeves rolled up and seeing a difference on our highways. At the very start of this month, May the 1st to be precise, communities came together once again to celebrate Staffordshire Day. Whether it was enjoying our countryside, our thrilling theme parks, or our food and drink festivals, there was something for everyone. Next year will be the 10th year of celebrating all that is great about this county, and there is sure to be renewed energy to mark the day in 2025. The countryside is undoubtedly a jewel in Staffordshire's crown, and this county council is proud to be custodian of much of our fantastic landscape. That's why this week we are sharing exciting plans to invest in our countryside to allow more people to enjoy it, to boost our visitor economy, and to ensure generations to come can benefit from the amazing green spaces on our doorstep. Country parks at Cannock Chase and Chase Water and the 92-mile Staffordshire Way will all benefit the investment boost this decade. And I know Councillor Wilson has walked the Staffordshire Way, one of the few around this table that I know has, so congratulations to you for doing that. You did report back how wonderful it was to go through the spine of Staffordshire and see all our wonderful attractions. Especially since the pandemic, we've seen a surge in enthusiasm for our countryside. It's good for your fitness, for your mental well-being, and for enjoying time with your family and friends. So if you haven't explored yet, please do so. It is therefore not a huge leap for us to showcase Staffordshire far and wide, so I'm delighted that the Film Office is being established to do just that. The Staffordshire Film Office is being launched and operated by We Are Staffordshire, and from next year the office will help film and TV production companies raise Staffordshire's profile on the national and international stage and help play a part in growing the county's economy. It's amazing to think that film and TV production industry contributes approximately £6.3 billion to the UK economy each year, and almost a third of visitors to the country are interested in going to a location seen on screen, so we are determined to maximise this opportunity. The County Council is very much driven by working with partners to maximise the benefits to both residents and businesses. Our new partnership with Midlands Partnership University NHS Foundation Trust to provide alcohol and drug support is just another example of this. This is believed to be the first agreement of its kind in this sector, and we are proud to be a trailblazer in the field. Dependency on drugs or alcohol can have a devastating impact on people's lives, health, work and relationships, and the rippling effect on family, friends and colleagues can be devastating too. You often find people don't have an isolated issue, but more wider issues are factors too. That is why this partnership with the NHS makes absolute sense and will be supporting the whole person rather than the single issue. And I look forward to Councillor Wilcox and Councillor Northcott driving those partnerships forward. Finally, some good news from over the weekend when our own employee, Stafford, now here comes the pronunciation which I'm bound to get wrong, Andruschin, is that close enough? Together with his wife Denise, appeared on Britain's Got Talent and were unanimously voted through to the next round. Great. We have a star in Staffordshire County Council. Of course, all you are stars too, but this one particularly is good on stage. So, not only are they from Staffordshire, but Stefan also works with us in the Specialist Teaching Support Service, helping children and their families understand and adapt to visual impairment, boosting their confidence along the way. Absolutely brilliant. Stefan and Denise, who are both blind, wowed the judges and the audience with their positive attitude and their amazing performance in the show. Both are fantastic role models, and we will be backing them to go even further in the competition. So get voting next time they're on telly. Before I close, though, I want to turn to another star. That's Rob Salmon. Rob, this is your final formal meeting of Cabinet after 38 years, is it? 38 years. So it's not in my notes. But I wanted to say a personal thank you to you for such a wonderful service that you've given to this county. Your record of public service has been absolutely wonderful. I remember when I became a county councillor 15 years ago and got put onto audit committee and used to meticulously go through 300 plus pages and used to turn up with loads of flags and side flags on my notes. And I think you looked at me and thought, oh my goodness, as a councillor, has really gone through the notes here. But I used to enjoy those meetings when I first got to know you. And since that time, you've gone from strength to strength. And you leave us as a member of the senior leadership team with a deep debt of gratitude from me for all the hard work that you've done. And on behalf of all the councillors that you've known over the years, many of whom I never encountered, and all the staff that you've worked with over the many, many years, many of whom have left, and many that you'll still be working with who you'll be leaving behind as you go into retirement. Retirement's just another phase in life. It's not. It's the beginning of a new phase, and I hope you have a long and fruitful retirement. I'd like Councillor Parry to say a few words, and then if you'd like to say a couple of words, I would welcome that. Councillor Parry.
Yeah, we like homegrown in Staffordshire, and particularly in the finance team, they propagate quite a bit of talent within the organisation. But there's no finer example of that than Rob Salmon, who joined as a lad in short trousers, I imagine, and started his career without finance training, without finance qualification. Those were acquired later, but went through every rung on the ladder to reach the top rung. And there can't be many, if any. I mean, if not rare, I mean, it's almost an endangered species, isn't it? Of someone who joins the same organisation and goes through every rung to reach the top, and then choose when and how they will retire and enjoy the rest of their hopefully joyful days. We've been so blessed with our finance team and with Rob in particular, and he served this council diligently for all of those years, and we're so grateful. Our job as politicians is to acquire and listen to the best advice, and to make decisions based on what you're given as good advice. And I've never ever doubted Rob's excellent advice, and his sound, not just sound financial leadership, but also his managerial leadership in building and leading a terrific finance team that we have here in Staffordshire. It isn't a sole trader job. It is actually a team, and there's a good team behind Rob, which he's been part of. Historically, I picked up the finance portfolio originally back in 2010, 2011. And before that and since then, Rob has been party to and involved in and central to every significant decision and change that we've had to make. All of those transformational savings that were made, all those difficult challenges within our MTFS have all been partly driven, and in many cases entirely driven by Rob's good advice and leadership. I'm therefore immensely grateful personally to Rob, as the council are, I'm sure. We'll miss him. We've got a great appointment as his successor, but nevertheless we'll miss Rob's contribution to the council and his inspirational leadership, and wish him well. I'd like to say a few more words tomorrow perhaps, but for now, thanks very much indeed, Rob. Appreciate it.
Rob.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for those kind words. Much appreciated. I think it is fair to say I've been here for quite a long time, and just for the record, I didn't wear short trousers back in the day, which is probably a blessing for all concerned all round with my legs. But actually, we had stricter dress codes in those days, so it wasn't something that was done. It's also fair to say I've been well supported by the council over those years since I started back in 1986, and you don't progress through a career that Ian's just outlined without the support of colleagues and by the council, which I'm grateful for. And it is also fair to say it's time to move on. You know when it's right to move into that next phase, and it is right for me. I like to think I leave the council in a good place financially. Financial stability, financial resilience is good. There are challenges ahead, indeed there are, but I think the council is well placed to meet those challenges head on. However, that isn't a position that's achieved by just one person. That is a team effort, and it does take a collective effort over many, many years to achieve the resilience and the stability that we've got. And I'm proud to have been a part of that. I am proud to think that I leave the council in a good state. So thank you for your words. I've enjoyed working with all of you and previous cabinet members also, and I do thank you for your support.
Thank you, Rob. The tough part for myself and Councillor Parry is going to have to find some nice words for tomorrow as well. More comedic tomorrow, okay. Right. Agenda item 5, which is the minutes of the meeting of the Property Subcommittee held on the 1st of May 2024.
Move them.
Moved, thank you. Agenda item 6, Staffordshire means back to business with the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader. Before I deliver my report, I'll just add my very brief words of thanks to you as well, Rob. I think one of the things that local authorities need to do with others is to set a good example, and we've certainly done that in terms of how we've managed our finances under your leadership. As a politician, I've always been really grateful for the clarity that you've given us in terms of saying this is how we can deliver the priorities that you have in a way that's in the best interests of our county. So thank you very much for that. It's much appreciated, and enjoy your retirement. On to the report. As always, I'd first like to provide Cabinet with an update on the most recent universal credit claimant counts. So in the previous month, Staffordshire saw a small decrease in the number of universal credit claimants of 85 people, which means that our percentage claimant count has remained the same as the previous month at 3%, which, as is the long-term trend, is well below the average for England of 3.9%. And for the West Midlands of 5%. We similarly saw a small reduction in the youth claimant count in Staffordshire, with a decrease of 40 people, meaning that our youth claimant count is slightly decreased to 4.8% of the population, which compares to a national rate of 5.2% and a regional rate of 7.1%. So our consistent trend follows the national trends, but at a much better level. So Staffordshire remains a good place to secure a job and to retain a job. I must say, though, although it is outside of our control here, I am keen to see interest rates fall as soon as possible, because that will help enormously with the viability of employing further staff for many businesses. Over the last few years, I've given Cabinet various updates regarding our success in supporting growth in the green economy in Staffordshire, an important and growing part of the economy here. Only last month, I updated you all on the news that GridServe, one of the UK's leading electric forecourt charging businesses, has been granted planning permission to develop an EV charging station at our flagship I-54 business park, just off the M6 in South Staffordshire. And this month, I just wanted to update you on another business in Staffordshire that's also investing in our area, which is Give Energy, based at Limedale Business Park in Newcastle under Lyme, where they opened last year and now employ 40 people at that site. And earlier this month, I'm pleased to say that they opened their first manufacturing facility in Staffordshire, also in Newcastle under Lyme, which will generate further employment there. But crucially is part of a trend that we're expecting to see growing in this country, which is increasing manufacturing of green energy products here on our soil. And Staffordshire is an area with enormous potential in that respect. Give Energy are a great example of a business that are doing that in our county, and who this county council is very pleased to support in terms of helping them find the sites that they need and secure other support that they require to continue growing. On a broader level, our 5500 project has highlighted the significant opportunities that exist in terms of decarbonising and the economic growth that can come from that, in particular in the north of the county along the A50 and A500 corridor. Give Energy are a good example of a business that are applying that in manufacturing, and Keele University are a wonderful example of the R&D and innovation side of that with their green energy expertise at the Science and Innovation Park at Keele, and their high deploy test bed for putting hydrogen into the national gas grid. Hydrogen is going to be a really important part of the UK's future energy delivery, along with electric, and the 5500 corridor offers not only that research expertise, but also a range of world-class manufacturers who are developing products using hydrogen, particularly in various vehicle power plants. Most notably for us here in Staffordshire, JCB, who last year launched their hydrogen combustion engine. The other aspect of hydrogen that's really key to Staffordshire is actually getting the hydrogen grid rolled out here sooner rather than later to support those manufacturers, but also to support decarbonisation of the rest of our economy. And I'm pleased to say that this council is now an active member of the Hydrogen Partnership, which is led by Cadent and National Gas Transmission, which is looking at bringing that hydrogen pipeline into the heart of the country early, and we are making a very strong case with them that one of their first ports of call should be along the A50 all the way to Stoke-on-Trent to decarbonise the potteries, something which I was discussing with a major ceramics manufacturer only last week, and they are very keen indeed to do. We think there's a huge commercial opportunity there, not only because we have major manufacturers along that corridor, but we also have the products that use that hydrogen being developed here in Staffordshire and in our neighbouring authorities along that corridor. Further updates to come on that. It is a major part of our work stream here. The other thing that I'll highlight today is our work with businesses more generally in terms of effective business support, and also our work with partner authorities. I mentioned Stoke-on-Trent a moment ago, and I'm very pleased to update Cabinet that last week the leader and I held, along with the leader and deputy leader of Stoke-on-Trent City Council, our first joint enterprise committee meeting. This is the successor body to the local enterprise partnership, and we had a very productive meeting, which included our agreement to allocate £300,000 of financial support to the continued operation of the Growth Hub, a key element of the LEP that's transferred into our control here at the County Council, which will be delivering for the citizens of Staffordshire across both the city and the county. That £300,000 combines with similar sum of money from central government, which provides us with 2 years of forward funding for the Growth Hub. It's the first decision of that new body, one that I'm pleased to say was very easy for us to make in partnership, and I think is the start now of a really good working relationship in terms of running those previous LEP functions around economic growth, around skills, careers development, and attracting investment into our area. So good news and a good example of councils working together to benefit our businesses and the people who work in them. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 7 is Community Learning Accountability Agreement 24-25, brought to you by the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills, Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader. So another important part of our contribution to helping people to lead better lives and to become more economically active. I'm going to start by reading the recommendations because they shape the information that I'll provide in the report. So the recommendations attached to this report are that Cabinet acknowledges developments and performance in the community learning service area, and secondly approves our accountability statement for the 2024-25 academic year. That accountability statement is our reporting back to government fundamentally, but it's also our transparency in terms of how we spend the money that is given to us to deliver community learning. So a brief summary of the community learning function and the report is, as colleagues will know, our community learning service supports around 2,500 learners in Staffordshire. It provides a wide range of courses, but those are geared principally towards improving people's health and well-being, confidence, resilience and independence, particularly focused on practical skills, so skills around numeracy, literacy, work readiness, but also family learning, so multi-generational learning where parents and children and indeed grandparents are learning together, particularly in some communities. It's really helpful to have younger people assisting older people to develop skills that they perhaps didn't develop when they were younger themselves. And it's also a really good opportunity to promote lifelong learning, which, as we know, is increasingly important in a world where the skills that you gained when you were at school maybe do need to be updated as you go on through your working life. The Council receives an annual funding allocation for this work from the Education Skills Funding Agency, and the allocation for the year that we're talking about here, which is August 24 to July 25, is £1.4 million. The other thing that I should mention at this point is that our community learning service was inspected last year. I'm pleased to say that we received a good for that report. It was a very strong good. You have to read the detail of the report to see how strong it was, but we were a hair's breadth away from an outstanding. So that independent quality assurance goes hand in hand with this report. In terms of our community learning framework, which outlines the areas that we are going to be focusing on during the 2024 to 25 period. Those areas are wellbeing and independence, community and family progression, English, maths and digital skills, STEM, so science, technology, engineering and maths, wider family learning for schools, so that's where school children get their parents and grandparents involved in learning, and our Community Learning Responsiveness Fund, which allows us to be, as the name suggests, responsive to needs that occur very rapidly, perhaps where there's a community where there's a number of redundancies that happen, or there are a large number of people who move into a community who might benefit from some ongoing learning. In addition to that annual funding, the Council has also secured £4.2 million from the Department for Education to deliver the Multiply programme, which is specifically geared towards adult numeracy for people who don't have a mathematics qualification at GCSE level or above. That funding came to us quite late last year, but I'm pleased to say that we've been able to get that programme well underway and the details of that are also in the report. Just a few highlights from that report in terms of impact. So I'm pleased to say that we are now delivering over 300 courses in over 50 venues around the county. The number of enrolments in the year was 2,942. Some of those are repeat customers, but that's the number of enrolments on courses. That's an 8% increase on the previous year. 60% of those learners, when they start their learning, have below a level have below a level 2 qualification. 43% are from our most targeted areas in the county, so those are typically the areas of higher deprivation, and 55% of them declared a learning disability or difficulty. Now, a difficulty may be anxiety, concern about engaging in learning. One of our key objectives through the community learning programme is to get people into the habit of learning, so that they can go on to further training, perhaps with a vocational aim in mind. In terms of the outcomes that learners themselves identified, 76% of learners said that their well-being had been improved through their learning. 40% developed better digital skills, 32% developed better English skills, 18% developed better math skills, and 24% gained more confidence to start a new job. 16% also developed skills to progress in their career. Regarding Multiply, we commenced that in Q4 of last year and achieved in that quarter 426 enrolments, so quite a high number in a very short period of time. And of those, 43% have progressed onto a longer course. It's geared towards getting people to take their GCSE if they don't have it already, as well as improving their functional skills. So 43% have progressed onto a further course. Regarding the accountability, agreement itself, it's set out in the documentation. I don't propose to go through it because we don't have a long enough meeting to go through it all, but it is clear and transparent, and it demonstrates where the money that we are being given by government is being spent and the impact that it delivers. Hopefully, I've given you a flavour of that today, but happy to answer any other questions that you have. Thank you.
I think the word that springs to mind is comprehensive. Any questions? No, you've heard the recommendations, Cabinet. All those in favour? That is agreed. Agenda item 8 is Wally's Quarry, addressing the impact on our communities, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you, Leader, and good morning, everyone. For far too long, residents of Newcastle under Lyme, living or working near the vicinity of Wally's Quarry, have had to endure the foul emissions from this establishment. I bring to Cabinet this morning a report addressing the impact of Wally's Quarry upon the health and well-being of its residents. The landfill site has for a long period been releasing foul emissions of hydrogen sulfide into the atmosphere from the site. We now call for urgent and decisive action to be taken by government to not only put an end to this situation, but also to protect the health and well-being of all those either living or working near to the site. The recommendation being brought forward is absolutely clear. We call for urgent action to be taken to reduce the emissions. So, colleagues, the history to the site is well documented. Wally's Quarry has been an active landfill site since 2007, and since that time there has been various reports of foul odours being emitted from the site, which escalated by the end of 2020, culminating in 2021 with complaints to the Environment Agency, initially in hundreds, but now several thousands each month. The installation of air quality stations was set up at 4 strategic points around the site, which confirmed that the main pollutant, hydrogen sulfide, was present, with levels regularly above the World Health Organisation's odour annoyance guidance level, and in some months were above the US Environmental Protection Agency guidance levels for time exposure. For its part, the Environment Agency have issued 4 enforcement notices to the operator since March 2021, requiring them to cap parts of the site. a gas management system to be established, and improved waste acceptance procedures to be introduced and, importantly, complied with. Colleagues, the local authority in Newcastle-under-Lyme Borough Council secured an abatement notice against the operator, which obliges them to not create or allow statutory odour nuisance. This became enforceable in March 2023. With complaints continuing to be made of foul odours, the Environment Agency in autumn 2023 revealed that they had concerns as to the accuracy of the air quality monitoring stations, and that data prior to this point was likely to be subject to a greater degree of uncertainty than previously understood. These monitoring stations have now been recalibrated, and the EA are confident that they are recording hydrogen sulfate levels more accurately. Since that time, levels of complaints have increased, and so the level of hydrogen sulfide being discharged. So, colleagues, on the 1st of March 2024, the EA issued a suspension notice which required additional works to be carried out on the site. When works were completed, the suspension was lifted on the 12th of March. However, locals continued to report foul odours and recorded levels remained elevated. The impact on health and well-being is clear, with a range of health effects that are consistent with exposure to this substance, with many residents complaining of stinging eyes, sore throats, difficulty in breathing, headaches, nausea and dizziness. These have also been reported mental health effects, including insomnia, anxiety and depression. Analysis of routine data and a study complied by Keele University has not revealed any increase in mortality rates, hospital admissions, prescribing or GP consultations with conditions that might be associated with exposure to hydrogen sulfide. However, it's important to note that the analysis is limited to the data available and cannot exclude an impact at some point in the future on the level of neighbourhoods or individuals. Colleagues, a broader community impact assessment is planned to help understand the wider effects of emissions, for example on the economy, education and the environment. The UK Health Security Agency is increasingly concerned about the ongoing elevated levels of hydrogen sulfide, and it's clear that the longer the emissions continue to happen, the greater the risk to long-term physical health. And there is evidence that prolonged exposure can lead to stress and the increased risk of physical health, including heart disease. They also state that a risk to long-term health cannot be excluded where hydrogen sulfide levels are above the long-term health-based guidance value. Currently, the risk is likely to be small, but the longer the population is exposed, the greater the risk will become. The UK Health Security Agency strongly recommends that all appropriate measures are taken to reduce emissions from the landfill site to reduce the health impacts experienced in the local community. To add to this list of representation, the Health and Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee considered the impact of Wally's Quarry back in July 2021, and the Chairman has written to the CEO of the Environment Agency, Secretary of State for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs to raise concerns about the levels and the effect that this is having on the health and well-being of residents. Importantly, also the lack of accurate air quality data on which to base health risk assessment, and to ask government to intervene. Colleagues, up to now the government has resisted taking any action in favour of ongoing regulation on the site by the Environment Agency. This has clearly not resolved the situation, and local residents and workers continue to be exposed to foul odours, which continued to be a risk to their health and well-being. This is why now we've come to Cabinet to seek a formal recommendation that calls for urgent and decisive action to be taken by government to reduce emission from Wally's Quarry landfill site to protect the health and well-being of local residents. Leader, I will stop there. I know there are some legal implications that I do know that other members around the colleagues around the table wish to speak to, but I'll stop there and wait and take any questions before we go back to the recommendation, if I may. Thank you.
Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you to the portfolio for introducing this report, and thank you for bringing this report. As a local member that represents the division which encompasses Wally's Quarry, even though it has a wider effect on the borough, as we know. I can testify to the impact that it's had on local communities far and wide in Newcastle, and that continues. Within recent days, the last weekend, complaints are up again from this site. So obviously we referred to the suspension notice by the Environment Agency for works to be required. There's no evidence yet that those works have dealt with the problem. And again, weather-related, different conditions lead to different events on that site, but the long-term issues remain, and that is the odours and the effect on local people. I think this report is really good. It sort of encapsulates the County Council's role within this. Sometimes the County Council isn't seen to be at the forefront of this because it's the Environment Agency, obviously, and the Newcastle Borough Council abatement notice, but a lot of support comes from the County Council. We were involved in the strategic group, which involves all partners involved in the Wally's Quarry issue. And I think I pay tribute to Mr Harling, who represents the County Council, and there is a key member of that SCG helping to try and resolve this issue for our residents in Newcastle. I think I'm really pleased that obviously it was recently publicised about the study that's taking place into the mental and physical health impacts of the effects of the odours from Wally's Quarry. And I think it's really good that the County Council is leading on that and has obviously got that up and running now. And I think that's been really well received by local residents. And of course, it won't stop the stink, will that report, but also what it will do is help us to evaluate some of the effects and how it's been affecting people. So action can be taken, and also that we can make sure that this doesn't happen again anywhere else as well, which is a really key point for me as well. The County Council does have planning responsibilities as the planning authority. I think we've really used those where we can, and I think through your leadership leader, by writing originally to the operator relating to the issues of lorries that were stacking outside Wally's Quarry, which was causing a massive traffic issue, traffic safety issue, and a pollution issue outside of the entrance of the quarry. And through the planning process, that was alleviated by allowing vehicles to go on site earlier, and that has now calmed down a lot, and that is a community concern that has been dealt with by action by this County Council and the operator putting in the planning application for the HGVs. I think the two other planning issues and legal issues relating to the planning permission, the Section 9 and also the Section 226, they're very detailed and specific actions, which, as it says in the report, our officers don't feel that there has been a need or a breach to bring them forward, but they're always there in the back pocket to be used. I think what we have to do is, as the recommendation says, is to, when we talk about the government, we're talking about the Environment Agency. And I think as letters that the leader has wrote in conjunction with Newcastle Borough Council, the position Newcastle Borough Council has taken, and also the position of the public, is that the Environment Agency have let the residents of Newcastle down. And I think when we focus on the government action here, it's via the Environment Agency that they need to step up on this, and I completely support the recommendation in there. As for the Borough Council, it is asked for Secretary of State's permission to take legal action for the breach in the abatement notice. Obviously, the portfolio did mention the abatement notice being in place and active. A breach was identified in January and February of this year, and we await the Secretary of State's permission to pursue that through the courts, which we will do on behalf of the residents of Newcastle. And I know that we do have the County Council support on that as we go forward with that. So I'm really pleased with this report, and I think the residents of Newcastle will welcome it. I've seen some press coverage already where it's gone down really well on the social media groups which the residents operate, and I would pay tribute to the residents, the way they have held the Environmental Agency to account, and also the local councils, and we've stepped up, and the county again here is stepping up here to support our residents. So thank you very much for this report.
Thank you. If letter writing was an Olympic sport, I'd be a gold medalist. Paragraph 18 of the report highlights the fact that I've written to the 2 parliamentary Under-Secretaries of State, 2 Secretaries of State, a Prime Minister, and various others to highlight this issue on behalf of the residents of Newcastle under Lyme. We continue to create pressure. The Health and Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee at Staffordshire County Council, who has a statutory function around health and care, had requested that the Environment Agency attend one of their meetings to discuss their proposals, what we could do to reassure residents. I'm afraid to say the Environment Agency empty-chaired that meeting, which meant that we weren't able to elicit from them what their plans were at that time. I'm grateful for Dr. Harling for his clinical knowledge and indeed work that he does around public health on this. Thank you for that. And you've been a great guide to us in terms of the technical data. But I'd also like to pay tribute to local democracy reporters, in particular Richard Price and Kerry Ashdown, who's with us today. I note that on the BBC website today, there's an article highlighting the study that's being led by Dr. Richard Harling, and I hope that as many residents as possible will be able to read that and participate in it. It's only through the work of reporters and the likes of the Local Democracy Reporter scheme that allows us to make sure that some of this publicity gets to a wider audience. So I'm hugely grateful for the work that they do. But that still leaves us with the problem of Wally's Quarry. Councillor Wilcox, thank you for taking up this baton. It's one that we hope we could solve at some point, but I'm afraid to say it appears to be an ongoing issue. But we do continue to provide a significant amount of pressure on behalf of the statutory authorities locally. And I know that Councillor Tagg has been... the word tireless seems to be an understatement in Councillor Tagg on this. He has not let up on this one iota in the entire time that I've been leader of this council, and indeed before that. And I've known him throughout that time as leader of Newcastle-under-Lyme Borough Council. So, Councillor Wilcox, I don't see anybody else indicating, so we're back to you with the recommendations, please.
Thank you very much, Leader, and thank you very much, Councillor Tagg, for adding to the report. I think it's one of those things where we need to keep the pressure on. It's really important for our residents that we do all we can to protect the health and well-being of our communities. So I think, as you say, Leader, we have written numerous letters to all the people concerned. We just need to keep on with that, not sort of let it go and sort of relentless keep going to make sure that at some stage the Environment Agency takes some action. So the recommendation, colleagues, is for the call for urgent and decisive action by government to reduce emissions from Wallis Quarry landfill site to protect the health and well-being of local residents. I so move.
You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? For the record, that is unanimous. Now, no Cabinet meeting will be complete without a framework agreement for this, that or the other. But today, ladies and gentlemen, you don't just have one, you have two. So agenda item 9 is the framework agreement for roofing works, and agenda item 10 is the framework agreement for Staffordshire garden waste. Both very important matters. Indeed, one of which is reported by local democracy reporters, I think again this week, or it might be on a local news outlet. So we're with you for agenda item 9. We'll do it with each one in turn, Councillor DeVille, and then come back for 10.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, for that introduction. It's a very straightforward report, Chairman. Good morning, everyone, by the way. It's a very straightforward report, but a very, very important one. It's essential that we have a new framework in place, as the current framework expires on the 30th of November of 2024. Just, Chairman, to put this into some context, our total procurement will be qualified for up to £22 million, which is a tremendous amount of taxpayers' money. There's an appetite from our district and borough councils, from the NHS, from Staffordshire Police and from Staff's Fire and Rescue to use this framework with us once it's live. So we really are able to get economies of scale through this framework, Chairman. The framework agreement is to provide the council with an agreed schedule of rates for the renewal and the repair of both flat and pitched roofs on council-owned buildings throughout the whole county of Staffordshire. This includes council offices and buildings, schools and academy buildings. The framework gives us real flexibility of long-term contracts, which will provide certainty and consistency of delivery, and importantly, you'd expect me to say, we'll be placing great focus on achieving very best value for money for our Staffordshire taxpayers. I'll read the recommendations and answer any queries as necessary, Chairman.
No, there's nobody indicating, Councillor DeVille, so we're back with you for the recommendations.
Recommendations today, I recommend that Cabinet A approves and agrees to officers undertaking a procurement exercise for the framework agreement for roofing works, and that the successful suppliers be appointed to the framework for the period of 1st of December to the 30th of November 2028. We agree that the following shall be delegated to the Deputy Chief Executive and the Director for Corporate Services. 1, the approval of the appointment to the successful providers to the agreement. 2, the approval of the entering into framework agreement with successful providers to include approval and execution of the final contractual agreements. And finally, Chairman, that we note that any instructions in terms of the framework agreement, subsequent call-offs will be approved and entered into in accordance with the Council's procurement regulations. They are the recommendations for today, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeVille. All those in favour?
Agreed.
For the record, that's unanimous. Agenda item 10, I'm terribly sorry, Councillor Tagg, I'd forgotten to mention that you were part of agenda item 10 as well. So this is the framework agreement for Staffordshire Garden Waste, brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Commercial Matters and Cabinet Member for Environment, Infrastructure and Climate Change. Councillor DeVille, Councillor Tagg, we are with both of you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And you're right, Councillor Tagg's portfolio really is important with this report, Chairman. And I'll ask Councillor Tagg to join me with the presentation of this report. Again, it's a really important report. The work supports our commitment to provide good quality services to the Staffordshire taxpayer at best possible value. It also, importantly, stresses our commitment to recycling and supports our ambitions to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Total spend, colleagues, is £2.5 million in 23-24. Any ongoing spend will be managed in budget, and it's anticipated that the annual spend in the framework will also be £2.5 million. It's proposed, Chairman, that 2 frameworks for garden waste disposal will be published to ensure that Staffordshire County Council capture all garden waste from the district and borough councils as and when their current contractual agreements come to an end. Framework 1 is the Garden Waste Disposal Framework for Newcastle-under-Lyme Borough Council, Stafford Borough Council and Staffordshire Moorlands District Council. And Framework 2 will be Garden Waste Disposal Frameworks for Lichfield District Council, Tamworth Borough Council, Cannock Chase District Council, East Staffordshire Borough Council and the South Staffordshire Council. Bring Councillor Tagg in if he has anything to add to those introductory remarks. Simon.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, I think just to point out, this is obviously a partnership that we are involved in when it comes to collecting whether it's recyclable material, garden waste or other materials. And I think through our joint waste management arrangements as part of our sustainability board, our officers have been working with the district and borough officers on this framework agreement. And of course, I think the main point is also to say that will be ongoing conversations as this process comes to a conclusion. I think really key that we do have this. Garden waste is the heaviest material which is recycled and can lead to the tonnage and increases in recycling rates which we want to see across the borough. We don't want this stuff going into residual bins no matter what happens to it. We want it to go to a recyclable facility, and through this framework arrangements we'll have a cost-effective way of doing that. There's big money involved in this, isn't there? As Mark has pointed out, and we've got to do that and get the best value for money out of this. And I think the framework agreements that we put in place for these two to north and south areas, as Mark has suggested, are a good way forward. And I would emphasise again, working in partnership with our districts and boroughs to ensure we get the best arrangements in place for every body involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Teggan. Thank you for all the hard work you've done on the Sustainability Board, bringing together the districts and boroughs on this. It's been a great job of work. Councillor DeVille, nobody's indicating, so we're back with you for the recommendations.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think we'll all agree that this offers, it's a good report. It offers value for money. It enhances the service that we provide to our Staffordshire taxpayers, and it's just good practice and good common sense. So therefore, I have 3 recommendations, Chairman. I recommend that Cabinet A approves and agrees for officers to undertake 2 procurement exercises in compliance with the requirements of the Public Contract Regulations 2015 for the framework agreements for Staffordshire-wide garden waste disposal. B, that we approve that following the procurement processes, the successful suppliers be appointed to the framework agreements, agreement of the final contractual agreements, being delegated to the Director for Economy, Infrastructure and Services. And C, that we note that any instructions in terms of the framework agreement, subsequent call-offs, will be approved in accordance to the Council's procurement regulations. So 3 recommendations this morning, colleagues. Thank you, Chairman.
You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour? Agreed. That is unanimous. Agenda item 11 is decisions taken by Cabinet members under delegated powers. There is one by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People in approving the proposed expenditure volumes and delivery arrangements for the Household Support Fund in Staffordshire, along with the continuation of the procurement of the Hemingway's VEX Digital Rewards Voucher Scheme. Agenda item 12 is the forward plan of key decisions. In the June meeting and in public, we have the final financial outturn brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finances and Resources, Councillor Parry, and myself. The Supported Living Commissioning Update brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Wilcox. Staffordshire Bus Strategy 2024 Update brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Commercial Matters. Treasury Management Report for the year, this is in July, Treasury Management Report for the year ended 31st March 2024 brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources. Again in July, Children and Young People's Emotional Health and Wellbeing Service brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Councillor Sutton. Digital Innovation Strategy for Staffordshire County Council brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, Councillor Parry. And then the Community Strategy brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Communities and Culture, Councillor Wilson. Moving into September, in public, we have Intelligent Transport Systems Maintenance Contract brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Commercial Matters. Recommissioning of contract arrangements for the supply of residential and nursing home placements brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Wilcox. Delivery plan and updates for the Housing with Care Strategy and Day Care Services brought to you by the Leader of the Council, Councillor White. Really? I'm supposed to delegate these things out to other people. I'm not quite sure how that happened. And then in private, additional nursing capacity brought to you by the Cabinet Member for Health and Care, Councillor Wilcox. I think there might be a bit of a typo there, Councillor Wilcox, so I think you can take it as read that you'll be doing that one. Right, that is the forward plan of key decisions. Agenda item 13 is the exclusion of the public. That the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business which involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972 indicated by below.